everyone, thanks for joining us today at Grit Machine DNA. I'm joined today by Stephen Archer. He is the chief of the Department of Fire in Lynn, Massachusetts. It is an incredible honor to have him here with us today. I'm a big fan of his. He has an incredible story. We're going to talk about that today, hopefully to inspire you. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks
it's just
for
an
having
honor to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I have been a fan of yours ever since I met you. So I'm just blessed to have you here today.
And I respect you tremendously too, so it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, we're going to jump right in.
Sure.
So what you know what we do here at Grit Machine DNA is we talk about leadership values, about faith, family, perseverance to inspire people.
Yep.
And so the way that I like to start these conversations is, who is Steve Archer?
Well, I was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to a family of immigrants from Barbados, the island in the West Indies. And there was a pretty large West Indian contingent right in that Cambridge area, Barbadian, Jamaica, Trinidad, all in that Cambridge area. But my family moved when I was just a young one. I was just a toddler when we moved to Lynn, Massachusetts. My father got a job at the General Electric in Lynn.
Yeah.
So we moved to Lynn when I was just a wee little guy, and
Yeah.
that's where I grew up. So I'm really kind of a Lynn kid at heart. But my wife is also from Cambridge. My wife Suzanne is she's a Barbadian also, born in Barbados, but raised in Cambridge.
Yep.
And
she's another powerhouse. I just want to say.
she is great. She is my right hand. Yeah. She really is. But so we live in Lynn now, and like I said, I've been in Lynn ever since.
Can you talk a little bit about your parents?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I assume that, and we're gonna get into this later, but I assume that the faith, the strong family values, the hard work ethic, I assume that partly came from your parents?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about them?
Oh, absolutely. Both parents, my mother and my father, were both strong, committed Christians, and they raised us that way. They grounded us in the Word of God and the things of faith and what it meant to be a man or woman of faith, not only in word but in deed. So we had that example to model our lives after. We were seeing them living out their faith.
Wow.
And they passed that down to us. They passed it on to us as kids. And, it makes the difference in the world. That strong family unit, as far as I'm concerned, it's the strength of the community, it's the strength of a nation, and it's what makes the difference. And it's what we need a whole lot more of in America today, especially in communities of color. In the black community, we've seen the fracturing of the family and all that goes along with that. And it's unfortunate, but I think that's what we need to try to change in the next generation.
I couldn't agree more. So let's dive in hard now.
Yep.
I'm going to dive in hard.
Yep.
You're an incredible role model. What do folks like you and I, how do we counter the culture that tells us that government is the way out for us and that in America we're victims?
Mm-hmm.
How do we counter that, Steve?
Yeah, I think we have to hold to the things that we know are true. There are certain universal truths that just don't change. And they don't change because the times change. They don't change because ideologies change. They don't change because political parties change. Yeah. We know things that make a difference for people and for the lives of people. Yeah. And so individuals like you and I know we agree on this, that those notions of family value and strong work ethic, self-reliance, responsibility, personal responsibility, the kind of things that we try to pass on to our children, we know that those things are eternal. Yeah. And so, especially in our communities, we need to continue to pound away on those things, send that consistent message, and counter the messages that sometimes are all too frequently out there in society and culture today, where they start talking about, reliance on government, and it doesn't help us. It's not helping. It's in large cases, experiments that have failed. They have failed our communities for generations now, and it's going to continue to fail our generations because they just don't work. The sort of things that we have been talking about are the sort of things that work. And are the strength of the community. So we just have to continue, to answer your question, to deliver the same strong, consistent method and example. Like I said, with the case of my parents, they weren't just talking this, they lived it out. If we talk it, teach it, and live it out, it can make a difference and have that impact.
Let's talk about faith, who or what has defined your faith, your belief in Jesus Christ? I mean, we'll get into, Judeo-Christian, our we're both followers of Jesus Christ, but something or someone got us here.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, at some point we have to own this faith that we speak about on our own. As we've been talking about, our parents deliver it to us. They bring us up in the things of the faith when we're little children. They sit down, they read the Bible stories to us, and they talk to us, and they say, Jesus loves me, this I know.
That's right.
For all the Bible. They inculcate that in us as little children. But then as we come of age, at some point, we have to grab hold of this faith and make it our own.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, if we haven't grabbed hold of it and determined to make it our own, then, we are subject to the winds of the world. We may go to the left, we may go to the right,
Totally agree.
where the Bible calls us to charge straight ahead, to follow the narrow path, as it said. So that's something I did for myself at one point. My parents set me on a really good path, gave me the teachings, gave me the foundation. But as a young man at 24 years old, I determined for myself, this is the path that I'm going to walk. This is the life that I want to live. And it changed everything for me from that day, from the point that I determined in my mind that this is the way that I want to walk, that I am going to hold on to this faith that was delivered to me and make it my own.
So here we are in Lynn, Massachusetts, where both you and I grew up. We have the head or the chief of the firefighters. How did that happen? How was the career trajectory?
Well, it's kind of funny. I more or less stumbled into this. I'm not one of those kids who grew up saying, I always wanted to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
From the time I was a little kid watching the fire trucks. That wasn't me. I know people like that, they've always wanted to be a firefighter, and God bless them for that. But for me, I more or less stumbled into it. God didn't stumble into it. He knew what he was doing all
he had
along.
a plan, right?
He had to stumble me into it, I guess is how I should put it. But I was an electrician, working as a journeyman electrician, making good money as a young single guy, as a journeyman with a journeyman's license in my pocket. This is after my point of unemployment. Yeah. And my younger brother had gotten on the fire department in the next town over. So he got on prior to me. And he quickly came to realize what a great, rewarding job the fire service is. He just loved it. He loved everything about it. He loved the camaraderie. He loved serving his community. And obviously the jobs have great pay and benefits. So he just knew it was a great job. And so he was the one that encouraged me to, hey, you know what, you need to consider taking the test for civil service for firefighter. And I was like, why do I want to do that for? I got a job. I'm making good money. I don't really need that. I don't know. He got to the point where he actually brought the application and handed it. Just fill this out. Fill this out.
Good for him.
And so I did, and took the test. And at the point I took the test, if the fire department had come calling at that point, I probably would have turned it down. I wasn't interested in leaving what I was doing then. But as time went on, and from the point of between the time of taking that test and when the city of Lynn was getting ready to hire firefighters, I had spent some time out of work, the unemployment time that I'm telling you about. Yeah. And so at that point, I realized that, you know what, this might be a good thing for me. And God was actually moving me in another direction. God was letting me know that he had some other plans for me. And so I accepted the job, and I could see God's hand in the whole way around, and the rest, as I say, is history.
What is leadership?
Yeah, leadership basically is, to use John Maxwell. I think it's John Maxwell defines it. It's influence. Leadership is influence. Leadership is about being able to influence those around you in a positive direction. So a leader is someone who captures a vision or a goal. And he or she encourages those around them to pursue this goal as well. And it requires focus. It requires, our pastor says all the time, one of his favorite mantras is, keep the main thing the main thing. And because it's so easy to get distracted on so many different things. So me as a leader, I may have a vision. Yeah. Like for our department, our mission statement is compassion, professionalism, and service. I had that imprinted at the bottom of all of our letterhead: compassion, professionalism, and service. That's what we're focused around. So everything we do needs to circle around that main mission. And so whatever it is that we're undertaking, that has to be at the forefront. And so a leader's job is to make sure that that vision is disseminated to everyone in the organization, you know, whether you're the head of a fire department or the head of a church or the head of a nation. You need to get this disseminated out to all your people, get them on task, and keep everybody focused in that, so that all decisions that you make are focused on that priority. That's what leadership is. It's just influencing. It's influencing people, because you've got to bring people along. If you're not bringing people along, if you're a leader that's not doesn't have people following you, you're just out taking a walk. You're not doing anything.
And it's funny. I totally agree. Right, influence, the ability to inspire people. The other part that I find really interesting, and you know, one of the folks that I just think is the greatest leader in the history of our universe, Jesus Christ. So there was the influence, but the service. He was a servant. And so anyway, look, you're the firefighters, police officers, etc., right? Servicemen and women, incredible service. But when we think about leadership, part of what I like to sort of nudge people on is, look, leaders have to serve.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to teach people how to serve. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The best leaders are individuals who have a servant's heart. Because if you don't have a servant's heart, you are going to struggle to inspire people, because people know, he's the boss, but he's got no interest in doing what we're doing. He's not going to want to be down here in the trenches with us doing this. He never was down here in the trenches. His heart's not here in the trenches. But if your heart is to serve others, and then you can inspire others of like mind to come along and do that, now you're an effective leader. But you've got to have a servant. The best leaders always have a servant's heart like that, and that's what inspires people. Because I mean, people want to be inspired. The masses of people really want to be inspired. They want someone who is going to excite them, give them a vision, and encourage them in how to move towards that vision. That's what we're all looking for. We all want a purpose in life. That's what others want. They want a purpose.
Agree.
You know, they want to show up at work and they say, all right, why are we here?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I don't want to be just
agree.
there for a paycheck.
Totally
We know
agree.
there's people who are just there for paychecks, but that's not what's going to encourage them and have an effective organization. A good organization is when people show up for work. They know why they're there.
No question.
But they know what they're doing.
Steve, what is, so around the theme of service and your career, etc., what has been the hardest, most difficult issue you've had to deal with on your professional side and career?
Regularly, I'd say it is managing people. I know that sounds kind of funny because that's what it's all about, but really it is. You know, I run into this all the time. People will say to me, wow, you're a fire chief. Boy, that's got to be really stressful, you know, handling those difficult incidents, you know, when you're worried about, oh my goodness, are we going to be able to get this incident under control? That's got to be really challenging. And I say to them, that's not the hard part. That's not the hard part at all. The hard part happens back at the fire station when I'm dealing with disciplinary problems, or I'm dealing with administration challenge, or I'm dealing with, you know, city hall or city council that doesn't want to give you what you need to, doesn't want to give you the groceries to make the meal.
That's right.
You know, whatever. That's where the real challenge is. So managing people, by and large, is, you know, far and away actually, is the toughest part of, you know, of the job, is learning how to manage people, how to keep them on task, how to keep them encouraged, and obviously how to deal with the, you know, there's always a small percentage who are just, they're just trouble. They're just not, they don't want to play along with the system. They're not team players. It's that way in any organization. So how to handle them and not have individuals like that infect the rest of the organization. And that can happen. But that's the challenge for, you know, whether you be a pastor or a CEO or a police chief or a fire chief, it's all the same.
How did your upbringing prepare you for those challenges? I mean, you've had incredible pieces come together. Your faith, your family, the grit, the tenacity, the hard work, being an electrician, et cetera, right? Having clients. How did all that prepare you for this? Because managing people is not easy.
It all comes together. It is so funny how I can see the Lord orchestrating my life. I can see his hand behind the scenes
Yep.
all the time. You know, like his song says, he's the wind beneath my wings.
Yeah.
He was there all the time, working all these things together so that I'd be prepared when I come in to this role. You know, if I knew the challenges, David, that were in the role, and it's like this, I think, in a lot of times when we step into difficult, we probably would say,
Right.
I don't want any part of that.
I'm out.
But the truth is the matter is,
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is that God has been preparing me with the different things that I've gone through in my life. He's teaching me empathy when I needed to have empathy. You know,
Yes.
He's teaching me discipline when I needed to have
Yes.
discipline for myself, or
Yeah.
when I needed to have the strength to discipline others.
Yeah.
So all the things, even the jobs I've filled outside the fire department,
Yeah.
the jobs I've filled inside the fire department, have all prepared me, have played a part in preparing me in getting ready for some of the challenges of the job, so that you know, whatever I need to do, usually I found there's something that I can fall back on. Okay, I remember this. You know, if I got to stand up in front of the media and you know, talk about something like that, that's a difficult thing. You know, as you know, public speaking is one of the most difficult things for a lot of people to do. But stuff I did in the past, God was preparing me. You know, I remember I did a PIO role. I was a public information officer for the city, and it came into play even as taking the test. There was an assessment center to make fire chief, and one of the exercises in the assessment center was you had to you essentially were a public information officer in front of a city council, explaining a really bad incident in front of the department. And I'm like,
Wow.
I got this. This is what I do.
You've done
So, and you know, and then it plays out in the real world now, doing it as well. So I can see. The point is, I can see all the different things, experiences I've had, challenges I've had, difficulties and struggles. I can clearly see how God uses all these things to prepare us for what's coming. And I say this to my kids all the time. You know, when I'm encouraging them, they're going through a difficult time and challenge in their life. I said, don't forget, don't neglect the importance of what you're dealing with right now. God is preparing you for something you're going to deal with in the future, or He's preparing you to encourage somebody else who's going to go through what you're going through right now. So I encourage them all the time. Don't neglect the importance of that. So and that's how God works. That's the God we serve. He's like that.
And you mentioned the word discipline, Steve, and it prompted me to ask about today's youth, etc. You know, one of the challenges that I have as an employer is having responsible people that are very disciplined, and frankly accountable for their work. Not easy to find.
No, it's not.
So what's the root cause, and how do we address it?
Well, unfortunately, discipline is almost seen as a dirty word in our culture today. You know, we have now, especially with the younger generation, I don't want to say we're coddling them, but we're coddling them to a large extent. We you hear the term now today's snowflakes. If we made everything so comfortable for them that they are not supposed to be even microaggressed at any way, we are not nothing. Difficult is supposed to come into their lives. We're not supposed to say anything that's going to harm their fragile self-esteem. We're not supposed to do anything that's going to knock them down at all. And that's just not the real world. The real world says you need to begin to practice incrementally from the time you're young to discipline yourself to deal with what you're going to deal with. We don't expect as much from the younger kids, but as they get older, they need to begin to prepare to start disciplining yourself. You know, at some point, you know, when your children are little, we tell them what time to get up in the morning to get to school. Right. We put their socks on, we put their coat on, we zip their little coat. Then they get a little older, we expect them to put it on. We tell them what time to get up, we expect them to put it on themselves. Then they get up a little bit older, then we tell them what time to go to breakfast and what time, and we take them out to the bus stop. As they get older, we expect them to do that on their own. Now they're putting their socks on by themselves. They're getting breakfast by themselves. They're putting the coat on by themselves. They're getting to the door by themselves. What are we doing? We are teaching them self-discipline so that they are ready to face life's challenges on their own. And it's always that way. If we are going to be grooming successful, self-reliant young people who are going to grow into self-reliant men and women, we have to teach and instill in them discipline. But unfortunately, to a large extent in our society, it's one of the things that's being pushed aside. Like we've got to coddle them. We've got to we need to teach them Sometimes it takes tough love, as I'm sure you're discovering
I'm with you.
with your own kids and
Yep.
with your nieces and nephews. Sometimes it teaches self-love, where we're
Yeah.
saying to them, well, I let you know what the expectations
Yep.
were and what was supposed to happen.
Yep.
You didn't do it, so guess what?
Yep.
You're going to have to deal with the consequences
Exactly.
now. That's
Yep.
teaching them
Exactly.
responsibility.
No question.
We have to do that.
Yeah, no question. How do you, from the perspective of discipline, self-reliance, responsibility, how do you, in your position, because you have to be, you're the fire chief, you're a very public figure, you play a huge role in this city. How do you give young people perspective today?
Yeah.
You know, in some ways, we glorified ghetto culture,
Yeah.
and here we have an individual who wears a beautiful outfit, a uniform, who's leading hundreds of men and women.
Yeah.
How do we give kids perspective about what's possible?
Yeah.
How do we do
Yeah.
that?
Well, I recognize that in some ways, just me being there is being a role model to these kids,
Wow.
to younger kids, especially younger kids of color in
Yeah.
the community, is letting them know that this is a possibility to
Wow.
them. Because we identify
Yeah.
with people who look like us. This is just human nature.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder for me to say to
Yeah.
identify with an older white man as opposed to an older man who looks a lot more than me. Not that everybody doesn't have something to offer to us, but it's easier for kids of color to identify with me because I look like them.
Yeah.
And so I understand and recognize that all the time, that I am playing that role whether or not I want to do it.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that responsibility, but it is. I remember I forget who the athlete was who says, it was a basketball player, and he says, I'm not a role model, I play basketball.
Charles Barkley, I think
it was Barkley. I think
Yeah.
you're right. And I want to scream at the TV, you're a role model whether you know it or whether
Yep.
you like it or not.
Absolutely.
You can be a positive role model
Yes.
or you can be a negative
No
role
question.
model, but you are a role
Oh,
model.
yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. You're a
Yep.
public figure, you're a role model.
Yeah.
Or even if you're in your community, you're a role model.
Yep.
You can be a role model for good,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you can be a role model for bad.
Yep.
So I recognize that I do play that role. I am a role model.
Yeah.
And I am giving them another perspective just by my being there of what they can do, of what they can accomplish.
that message.
And that keeps me honest because it
Yeah.
keeps me remembering that I better do good. You know, I've got to do my job,
Yeah.
do it well, hold myself
Yeah.
with respect. Otherwise, I could potentially be a negative role model to them. And, you know, back to the thing we said about the image of God for our children. One of the most humbling things is realizing that I could potentially be a negative role model for someone in the community, and I don't want to be that. So, it is the understanding the role model, mentoring position, opportunity that I have is at the forefront of my mind all the time.
I love that. You know, here's Steve Archer, the fire chief in Lynn. Incredible family, incredible journey. And then you go back to a high school and speak to a stadium full of kids. What's the message?
I think the message I would give them is to live their lives on purpose, to find out what their purpose is in life, why they are here, and work towards that. Keep that always focused as the center of their thought process. You know, we as believers, we come to understand that we are here for God. We are here. That's why we're here. One of my favorite books is The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I think it's the very first line in the book. He says, it's not about you. He says, which is, you know, that's counterintuitive to everything we do as a society today, you know, where it's all about me. But the reality is, for we as believers anyways, is that we are here to glorify God. That's my purpose. So whatever path I choose in life, whatever I decide to do, it needs to keep that as the focus. But even for children, let's say for young people who are not believers, if they have a purpose in life, if they know what their mission, their vision, their goals are, that's going to keep them on track. And so that's one of the things I say when I talk to young people is I say, set aside a mission, set aside a goal. So this is what I'm working towards. And one of the ways it keeps them on track is that anything that's going to get in the way of getting towards that goal, you know it has to go. You realize when you're focused, you realize I've got to cut this out of my life. It's a negative. It's going to prevent me from getting to my goal. So, you know, if this individual has a goal for X, Y, or Z, and all of a sudden this relationship they're in, they see is probably not really a positive relationship. This person's not with me. This person, you know, hard choice.
Yep.
that's got to go.
Yep.
If there's a distraction in life, if there's a expenditure of your resources that's
Yes.
preventing you from getting where you need to go,
Yes.
guess what? It's got to go.
Yeah.
So that kind of vision, that kind of
Yeah.
living life on purpose
Yes.
helps to keep us focused and
Yes.
keep us centered.
Yes.
And I tell them not to be too hard on themselves. Your sometimes your goals will change from time to time in your life.
Absolutely.
You may have set out, this is what I want to do in my life, and realize either the Lord is talking to you or your gifts
Yeah.
are telling you that, all right, you need to alter that.
Yeah.
It's not unusual, as we know.
Yeah.
Kids change their majors in college. Just talking about their
Mhm.
occupation, they change
Yeah.
their majors in college a number of
Yeah.
times. That's not unusual.
Yeah.
But whatever it is,
Yeah.
always have in focus, in mind, a mission,
That's
a
right.
goal. And when you do that, it will help keep you on
Yeah.
track. It will help to prevent distractions from getting in your life
question.
that are going to knock you off track.
question.
So that's one of the things I encourage when I talk to young people.
Love that. So, what is Steve Archer's purpose?
I was put here. I was put on this planet to glorify God through my
Awesome.
life. That's my reason to be here. In fact, David, I would say to you, my life didn't really make that much sense to me until I understood that and grasped that concept. And this is one of the reasons why I think the whole, evolution thing is so damaging to kids' psyches, because if they believe they're just here by random accident, random chance, what difference does it really make if you think? But if, on the other hand, you grasp and understand and relate to the fact that God has me right where He has me this moment, this day, throughout my life for specific reason and purpose, then I'm living my life with purpose. And I'm here, God put me here to somehow glorify Him through my life, so that when others look at me, they will give glory not to me, not to Steve Archer, but they'll give glory to God for what He's doing in and through me. That's my purpose. That's why I'm here.
I love it. Yeah, Steve, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
For those of you listening or watching, thank you for joining us. Steve Archer is just somebody who I've admired for a long time, and it's an honor to have you. So thank you, Steve. Blessed to have you. Any parting words before we break?
I want to thank you, Dave. Thanks for all you do and what you're working towards, and I'm excited to see what's going on, what God's going to do through your work. And thanks for having me.
Amen.
I appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Blessings to you.
Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino, y pronto nacerá la paz en tu corazón. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor, y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor, y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su